The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But Jesus said to him, "Friend, who set me to be a judge or arbitrator over you?" Then Jesus said to the crowd, "Take care. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions." Then Jesus told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, "What should I do? For I have no place to store all of my crops." Then he said, "I'll do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grains and my goods. And I will say to my soul, 'Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Therefore relax, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool. This very night your life is being demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich towards God.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. I have a question. How many of you here this morning would consider yourselves wealthy? Raise your hand. I didn't see this side. Okay. I'm glad of that. Otherwise, if no one raised his or her hand, I would say, that's the end of my homily. Because, if you listen very closely to the first reading today, which is from the book of Ecclesiastes, which was written 3 centuries before Jesus Christ, it's a book which presents the whole idea, at least Koheleth, who says you have to be very careful when it comes to possessions and wealth. And he goes so far as to say, maybe you had a hard day, I don't know, vanity of vanities and all is vanity. That's what it is. It's what it comes down to. This particular book of Ecclesiastes is tied in with the wisdom literature. And the wisdom literature tried to make very clear to people that there is something beyond this life. In other words, that there is a risen life. And that is what St. Paul really delves into. The resurrection. In fact, today, when he talks to the Colossians, he says to them, don't be so concerned about the things of this earth, but be more concerned about the things of heaven beyond. And when I look at myself, I say to myself, if I exerted that much energy in the things above, in other words, in my prayer life or my relationships with others, I would make far greater advance in the spiritual life because I put so much emphasis on this life, what's going on right now in my life, rather than having that broader vision of saying, what's beyond? And Jesus makes it even more powerful because he says, don't get involved in greed. Because greedy persons always want more. And then he gives a very powerful parable, doesn't he? As far as this man who says to himself, well, I need more. And if you ever noticed how much of the I and the my were involved in that particular parable, it almost borders on narcissism. And when you're concerned about narcissism, then what happens is it's all me, 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 rather than someone else. And that's why Jesus made that very clear, that greed is there in our society today. Remember that movie, I don't know what year it was, where Michael Douglas starred in the movie entitled Wall Street. And remember, one of the lines in that particular movie was, greed is good. Greed is good. Can you imagine? And that's why Jesus was trying to get that across to individuals. No, greed is not good. Because if you're a greedy person, you always want more. You're not satisfied with what you have. And that's why we have to be able to say, yes, we have to look beyond this world. We have to look beyond and say to ourselves, what am I doing to reach out to others, rather than hanging on to what I have? And some of you might have heard that story of this man who died and he wanted to take the money with him. Wanted to take it along. And his wife was trying to get it across to him. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And even his children were trying to get that across to him. You can't do that. Don't do that. And what does he do? I want that money to go with me. So, as the casket was being lowered into the grave, the priest says to the mother, how could you do something like that? How could you do something like that? And she said, oh, I wrote him a check. We live in a society today where we have, like Pope Francis is pointing out to us again and again, the haves and the have-nots. And it's so true. Isn't it true that, 1% of individuals own all the money? Now, we have to be very careful, though, that we don't denigrate or look down upon the rich, because there are individuals who are rich and who share their lives or with others. They do. Take Bill Gates as an example. Here's an individual. You realize how much he is worth? 138 billion. And yet, an individual who reaches out and is very charitable toward many, many individuals. Warren Buffett is another example. You realize that this individual gives 99% of the money that he has accumulated to charitable organizations. So it's not a matter of saying, well, the rich don't do anything. There are some that don't. But we have to look at ourselves and say, how am I willing to share with others? Share my life with others, with individuals, and to be able to go beyond that, and to say to myself, yes, because it's easy oftentimes to be able to dig into your pocket and to give to some charitable organization. But I think we have to be able also to look at this and say, am I willing to share myself, my time? It's a very precious commodity, isn't it? My time. So, we have a good example of that with regard to the corn roast. When an appeal goes out for individuals to sign up for the corn roast, how many individuals are willing to do that? It's always, isn't it so true, the same people that are willing to do it? rather than to say no, I haven't got the time. You ever notice that? People always say, I haven't got time. We have to learn to be able to give of our time, to give of ourselves, and that's what Pope Francis is trying to get across to us. In fact, recently he just said, get off of your couch and do something. Be able to reach out to others, reach out to the homeless, reach out to the poor, reach out to the hungry, reach out to individuals who are in need of our help. Are we willing to do that?
Yes.
Then share. Share of your time. Share of your money to charitable organizations.